And we are. Hi everyone, great to see you again and welcome back to Winning the Game of Business Live. So today I want to start by asking a really simple question. If the pressure for every part of your business sits on your shoulders, do you really have a leadership team? Or do you have a group of people with impressive job titles who still behave like direct reports? If every time something goes wrong and it lands on your desk, if you're the one everyone runs to with problems, if you can't step away without everything feeling heavier for you, then I'm afraid you don't have a leadership team. You have a collection of people who report to you, and that's a very different thing. And here's where a lot of business owners get caught out. They confuse titles with leadership. They confuse titles with leadership. So you might have an ops director, a sales director, a head of finance, and think we've got a leadership team. No, you've just got a set of job titles. You know when you've got a genuine leadership team when the pressure is shared. It's not all sitting on your shoulders. When problems are owned and they're solved at the right level. When people come to you with solutions, not just issues. When the team can still function when you're not in the building. But if every escalation still ends with you, if every big decision waits for you, if people keep saying, what do you want me to do? Then no matter what it says on their LinkedIn profile, what you still got is a group of direct reports, not leaders. And that's what we're going to try and fix today. So a good question is to start with, what do real leaders do? So let's define this properly. For me, real leaders take ownership for their roles and responsibilities. They are outcome focused, not task focused. They look ahead, they spot issues early and find ways through them. They collaborate together and they don't operate in silos. And they align their decisions to profit, cash, revenue, and strategy. Whereas fake leaders or direct reports in disguise need you to approve everything. They bring you problems with no thought about solutions. They focus on tasks, not results. They blame other departments when things go wrong, and they wait for you to drive it. But a proper leadership team, they challenge each other, they cross-collaborate, they hold each other to account, and together they deliver the ultimate outcomes, which, as I've said, are profit, cash, revenue, and strategic alignment. So if that's not happening, it's not because you're a bad person, but it does mean you've got some work to do on your leadership team. Okay, so let's talk about how to fix this. The first step is you need to get really clear, crystal clear on the outcomes. Now, I often walk into businesses where the owner says, my leadership team just don't step up. But when I ask, what are they exactly they're responsible for? Or what are their three key outcomes? And what are the KPIs that tell them or tell you they're winning? I often get vague answers and blank stares. And the truth is, if you aren't clear, they definitely can't be clear, can they? So for each function, that could be sales, that could be ops, that could be finance, marketing, people, or HR, etc. You need to ask, what are the 3 to 5 outcomes this function must deliver? Not tasks, outcomes. What are the numbers that are going to tell us if we're on or off track? How are we going to review, or how often will we review progress? Is that going to be weekly? Is it going to be monthly? So some of the things you might want to track, for example, let's look at sales. In sales, you could be tracking revenue, conversion rate, average order value, pipeline value, In operations, that could be on-time delivery, rework, returns, job margin. In the finance department, you could look at the cash position, aged debtors, overheads, percentage net profit. In HR or people, you could be looking at things like, or measuring things like retention, engagement, the time it takes to fill vacancies. But until each leader has a simple agreed scoreboard, you can't expect them to own anything. So if you're listening to this and thinking, I don't have that level of clarity, then that's your first job after this live. The second step is to audit ownership by asking the question, who's really leading? So you need to look at ownership, and you'll start to see very quickly who's a real leader and who's just wearing a badge. So what you're looking for is who talks in I and we language. Now that could sound like, here's what we're doing about it. Here's how we're going about fixing that. Alternatively, you could look for who's talking in they and you language, which could sound like they didn't do this, that, and the other. You need to tell them, what do you want me to do? It's not about being harsh or judgmental. It's about being honest. Some of your current leaders are actually very good senior doers. They're excellent at tasks, but they haven't yet stepped into full ownership of outcomes. And others that simply may not be right for a leadership role at all. So your job is, at this stage, is just to see what's true, not rush in and try and fix everything in a week. At step 3, things start to get a little bit tougher, because you now need to decide for each person, are they willing and able to grow into a leadership role, or are they never going to get there, no matter how much you train them? Here's a simple rule of thumb that I like to use. If they will meet you 70% of the way, then you can work with that. What does 70% of the way look like? Those are people who take feedback seriously. They're willing to learn. They're trying to anticipate issues. They're asking far better questions. They're genuinely putting the effort in. Now, that person might need a development plan, showing them the clear picture of where they are now, a clear picture of what great looks like in that role, and training the specific skills and behaviours they must build and in what time frame they need to build them. Plus, there has to be regular check-ins with you. But if you've clarified people's outcomes, you've given them support, you've provided the training, and they still won't take ownership, then you've got to be honest. Your business cannot wait or afford for someone who may never decide to step up. I've seen so many owners bash their heads against a brick wall for years with the wrong person in a key seat. But you owe it to yourself, to the rest of your team and the business to make that hard call when it's clearly not working. Step 4 is to give your leaders space to lead whenever you disappear. This is where a lot of owners wobble because they either hover and micromanage, or they swing to the other extreme and abdicate. So great leadership from you looks like consistently setting and resetting outcomes. It's regular structured check-ins. Now that could be weekly leadership meetings or one-to-ones. It's giving clear feedback based on data, not feelings. And it's also about supporting them when they take good risks and challenging them when they're ducking responsibility. Now, your job is not to be the cleverest person in the room. In fact, you should be pretty much the dumbest person in the room, who's surrounded by people who are better than you at the areas that they lead. And that is when you know you've built a real leadership team, because they understand the strategy, they own the numbers, they solve the problems together, and they move the business forward with you and for you. And that's what frees you up then to finally be the business owner and focus on things like vision, culture, strategy, key relationships, and the big opportunities that are out there, instead of you being the human escalation point for every small issue. Let me say this really clearly. Your job as managing director is to manage the directors. Their job is to direct their functions. And if you're doing their job for them, no one's doing your job, are they? And this is a line worth keeping. Clarity beats hope every day of the week. Clarity beats hope every day of the week. Hoping someone gets it, hope the team steps up, hoping problems sort themselves out isn't a strategy. Instead, give people clarity on outcomes, give them the tools, the authority and the support, give them feedback and accountability, give them space to grow or permission to leave. Do that and you won't have a group of direct reports, you'll have a leadership team that actually leads. Okay, before we wrap up, let me give you a few questions to sit with. If you match where all the pressure in your business sits, how much of it still sits on you, on your shoulders? For each person on your so-called leadership team, could you write down in one sentence the outcomes they are truly responsible for? In your team, who is currently behaving like a real leader and who's just wearing the title? What's one conversation that you've been avoiding about ownership, performance, or expectations? Now, if this has hit a nerve in a good way, here's your next step. Take one of your function heads and define 3 clear outcomes and 3 clear KPIs that you want them to own over the next 90 days. Then book a meeting, share those outcomes, and start treating them like a leader. Now, if you'd like help building a proper leadership team structure, or you're not sure who's really in the right seat, drop me a comment or send me a message and we can have a conversation and discover the opportunities open to you. In the meantime, I'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place, 3:30 p.m. UK time. Now you go out there and ask those questions so that you can keep winning this great game of business.